According to movies like Blade Runner, our gritty cyberpunk future is going to be just as racist and sexist as the present day. But on the plus side, there's going to be noodle shops. So many noodle shops. Fans of classic science fiction rejoice! The Hollywood nostalgia machine is about to deliver a sequel to Ridley Scott's incredibly influential cult film Blade Runner. 35 years after Rick Deckard first escaped from a grim, dark Los Angeles with the world's fanciest fembot in tow, Blade Runner 2049 is finally going to give us some answers to those burning questions that have plagued our collective psyche for years. Questions like, shouldn't there be more Latinx people in the Los Angeles of the future? Are we just going to pretend like Deckard's assault of Rachel was A-okay because there was a romantic saxophone wailing in the background? Do androids dream of electric sheep? But before we immerse ourselves in the grim future of Blade Runner 2049, let's spend a little more time in the grim future of 2019. Wow, that's really soon. In the original film, Harrison Ford plays the titular Blade Runner, a cop who hunts down and kills rogue androids called replicants. In 2019, replicants perform dangerous, grueling manual labor in off-world colonies and, surprise, surprise, provide sex to humans. So when they go rogue, it's kind of a big deal. And I know it may sound like something out of our sci-fi cinema nightmares, but soon, this kind of thing may happen in our own dystopian techno-future timeline. According to the totally reputable New York Post, we're creeping up on the day when sex robots might kill their owners. Man, can't a guy just enjoy his deeply sad misogynistic desire for a woman that he can have sex with anytime he wants, who never ages, complains, or has a single thought of her own in peace? Anyway, enough about Reddit. In Blade Runner, replicants have thoughts, feelings, and desires just like people do, but society doesn't want to acknowledge that they're basically human, because that would mean acknowledging that using them for slave labor is wrong. Blade Runner uses the existence of replicants to explore questions of what it really means to be human, and in many ways, it's a rich, complex, and fascinating film. But the way it tackles those issues is by focusing on the humanity of white men, like so much media does. As a result, it effectively leaves women and people of color on the margins of who is really deserving of being considered human.
Well, you'd be surprised what a guy go through to get a glimpse of a beautiful body.
No, I wouldn't.
Of the 4 rogue replicants Deckard is hunting, 2 are female. Pris, designed as a standard pleasure model, and Zora, who works as an exotic dancer. Because of these roles Pris and Zora find themselves in, you could argue that Blade Runner offers a valuable critique of how our culture oppresses women. Both Pris and Zora are prisoners of patriarchy who have been pigeonholed into roles to please men, and they're punished with violence for trying to live their own lives. Both die at Deckard's hands after desperate fights to survive. Their deaths are painful to watch, and even though Deckard is the film's anti-hero, we're supposed to be somewhat sympathetic to Pris and Zora's efforts to escape their destiny and design. But then, unfortunately, there's the replicant Rachel, Deckard's love interest.
You kiss me.
That's our moody hero, preventing a woman from leaving his apartment and forcing her to accept his physical advances. Meanwhile, the movie itself tries to frame this mind-boggling scene as a seduction. You know, just because there's cheesy romantic saxophone music playing, that doesn't make it any less assault. It's still totally assault. Yet, in the end, despite his reprehensible behavior, Deckard gets the girl, and the two of them run off together, totally undermining any concerns about patriarchy that Pris and Zora may have raised. Ultimately, the story isn't really about the women. They may be on the sidelines of Blade Runner's future society, but they're also on the sidelines of the script. It's Rick Deckard and Roy Batty, the leader of the rogue replicants, who the film focuses on in its exploration of humanity.
3, 4. No, 4. 2, 2, 4.
The film takes place in Los Angeles, one of the most diverse cities in the world, and despite being an overwhelmingly white film, Blade Runner knows it's a diverse city. The streets are full of Japanese noodle shops. Advertising targets people of different cultural backgrounds. And hey, they even gave Edward James Olmos and James Hong really small parts. Yet race doesn't enter at all into the film's concerns about oppression. And despite being such a diverse city, all of that diversity is nothing but background texture. But it's not as if the film is unaware of racism. The original theatrical release actually had a voiceover from Deckard that equates the persecution of replicants with racial persecution.
I've got 4 skin jobs walking the streets.
Skin jobs. That's what Bryant called replicants. In history books, he's the kind of cop used to call black men.
Ironically, by centering whiteness so much, the film subtly perpetuates the very real-life issues of oppression and marginalization that it appears to be concerned with. Have things improved on the race front in Los Angeles in the time between 2019 and 2049? Or will the sequel still serve up a vision of the future that seems to have hatched from the minds of white men who think neon signs with Japanese characters on them are cool and futuristic, but don't want to actually have significant Japanese characters in their movie? I guess we'll see. The cast has some actors of color in it, and who knows, maybe Edward James Olmos has a slightly bigger part this time. But it's also possible that the film will focus almost entirely on Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, and Jared Leto. We hope that if this new Blade Runner explores issues of humanity and oppression like the first one did, it doesn't do so almost entirely through the experiences of its white male characters. Science fiction gives us the chance to imagine brave new worlds, so why are we limiting ourselves to the same old stories? Help us keep making episodes of The FREQ Show by donating today. Visit feministfrequency.com.